It's about 10, Friday, June 12th, 2015. Pretty windy out here, about 30 miles per hour. You know, in life, for, for each of us, one thing I learned that there's many paths, one road, and one mind. Some call it the mind of God. Lightning, oh, the universal mind. As Carl Jung coined the phrase, Carl Gustav Jung, great man, uh, psychologist. He died right before I ever had a chance to meet him, about 5 years before. On the same token, once you become a certain, once you have a certain level of understanding, let's say, you get to a point when you realize that all of reality, every plane of existence, every plane, an infinite number of planes of consciousness, of realities, never ends. Never ends. It's impossible. Eternity goes both ways. Infinitely high and infinitely low. As above, so below. But get to a certain point when you finally understand that all reality, everything, every universe, every galaxy, every solar system, every galaxy, every universe, there's an infinite number of universes and realities. All of that, through infinity and eternity, is really nothing more than God's dream. That's all it is. That's all. We are the universe experiencing itself. And if you do things correctly, the universe will mold itself around you and help you out. Help each one of us out. But you have to play the game right. You can't cheat. You can't lie. You know, all those things. You have to have integrity. That's a big thing. It won't work too well without that. You have to be on your best behavior at all times, if you can. Most people can't. You know, they're the kind you have to wind up on. That have to be wound up on Sundays. It's Ian Anderson coined a phrase on the Aqualung tour. Excuse me, Aqualung album. He's not the kind that I'm not the kind that you have to wind up on Sundays. So there you have it, in a nutshell. Part of it, anyhow. Let's get back to Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. It's well known in the Bible, in the Old Testament, New Testament, that about age 12, he was in the he was in a market, and he got mad and he smashed the, you know, he disrupted tables and had a tantrum. You know, he chased the money makers away and all that. But he was 12 years old, and then Joseph, his stepfather, came in and saved him, took him out of there. If I remember right. I'm not a Bible scholar by any means, but there's little known about those years between that incident and about age 30. There's not. Not in the Bible. It's too bad, really. Remember John the Baptist? They were cousins, right? Jesus and John were cousins. And they both, well, John traveled from Jerusalem, Bethlehem, that area of the world, on a mega cross-country trip on foot, and ended up in Lhasa, Tibet, at the Lhasa Temple. Lhasa. Lhasa. And there he studied. Then years later, along comes Jesus at the same temple. The three wise men instilled in him, even the cash and the impetus to go there eventually. And on the way there, Jesus learned Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, etc. and perfected all of them. He met John, his cousin, and the mission was worked out. Let's call it the mission. And we all know what that was. John had to sacrifice his life at the river years later, just like Jesus did. But see, when Jesus was crucified, he died. He died. He really died. And what happened? Passover, or those 3 days. Let's not get into the words because I get confused with the terms. But 3 days, right? In a tomb. Mary, his mother, Mary Magdalene was invited there. They anointed him with frankincense and myrrh. They preserved him the best they could. Then they sealed that tomb up, right, with a big rock. So they say. A big rock. 3 days in that tomb. Well, what do you think happened in those 3 days? Did he rise back by himself? No. He was rebuilt with the help of his father and a few other Elohim, humans, advanced humans. and they rebuilt him. They were angels, you know, in the Bible, angels. They were advanced men. They it took 3 days to bring it to put his body back together, and to reintroduce the soul and the spirit back to the body, and then he could get up and take his body, and then really be advanced, and then ascend, and take his body with him, which he did. So Jesus was half man, half human man, and half one of them. He was immaculately conceived. Sorry, it wasn't. That's a fantasy, a fairy tale. Something that's been passed around for millions of people. Millions. You're all duped. Sorry. Isn't that something? Isn't that special? Imagine that. Imagine that. How do I know this? Because I was lucky enough to meet one of them in 1977 at Eric Miller's house. True story. God. Gas strike. True story. When you shake hands with somebody like that and walk with them and hang out with them for over 16 or 17 hours straight, when you're 20 years old, kind of puts you in shock. You know. Here it is, 37 and 38 years ago, later, I'm probably still in shock a little bit, but it's time to talk about it. Maybe I just did. Who knows? Who knows where it ends? You gotta always respect the saints. Always respect them. Archangel Michael. I've been blessed by him twice in my life. He actually anointed me once himself in 1976 with his sword. He's come down and touched millions of people though, besides me. You know, it just happened. I just happened to be a lucky one. And nobody. Well, we're getting to get a storm late here pretty soon. I could use the rain. Take me away, Calgon. Take me to God's country, where I can go have peace and quiet. Not the lies, not the bullshit. Look at the stars and finish my, hopefully, be somewhere where I can continue the what Mike and I started back in 1977. You gotta have a lot of quiet, a lot of privacy to do that. Yeah. imagine that? I was very lucky. Mike told me that only 2,000 people on the planet at that time knew what I knew. Only 2,000 or so. He didn't give me an exact figure, but from what he understood, about 2,000 of us in 1977 had been contacted like I was. So I consider myself pretty fortunate. You know, what's that? There's about 5 billion people then, 3 billion, I don't remember, or 4. There was 3 billion in 1963 or 4. And I was in 3rd or 4th grade. So, by the way, it got to be 96 degrees today, or 95. 35 degrees or so Celsius. Pretty hot. It's too hot for me to take a walk to the river. It's too far. Take a dip and cool off. Anyhow, hasta la vista. I'll see you when I see you. 10-4, 10-4.